of that in a little bit, but if I call this, you'll see it called the tool and absolutely just demolished this scale of 1.2. Feedback opacity, yeah, okay, so it did a little bit of an effect, but it didn't really understand the feedback opacity. But pretty fun. You could also just say reset to defaults. I believe in the agent tab of tool toggles, enable single block edit sequence. We're not dealing with sequences. Include sequence size, yeah. It'll see the defaults. And now it just set it back to default, similar to how when I hit reset to default. And I think that pretty much covers this little setup. Dive into it if you will. But if you have any projects already that might already have a couple custom parameters that you handed off to a client, you could treat the agent like your client and just be like, play with it. And then you could prompt the agent. That's a silly example, but so yeah, that's one example of the tool parameter. This one I'm not going to go all the way down, but this is a more complex network with a 2-stage agent thing. I gave it the visual for the lineup tonight, including the speakers, but it says 7 to 10. It doesn't really say too much information on here. And then I wanted it to give me sequences of the speaker with the name, the title, and the time. And then you'll see in this message, let me just copy what I did here, put it out here. I'm also probably going to post the after project file because I'm going to edit some stuff and then maybe you'll be able to look at before and after. So I'm saying, please fill out the roster. Each speaker gets a 20-minute slot. Torin is going to go for only 10 minutes and AV set is 9:30 to 10. Speakers start at 8. And then based off that, I'm just going to copy paste this, reset all ops, and reset the size. Which model am I using? Now I'm using Gemini 2.0 Flash, another pretty solid, pretty cheap, really good at tool calling, fairly eager, you still need to prompt it a little bit. And if I call that, click on here, it's going to go through and it sets the same things. It didn't give us the start and end time, as you see, and it actually didn't put Sculptor with the right time. So let's just see if I call it again. It might see the current values. It might just be like, oh, you're already set. Yeah, it just set the same stuff. But maybe, let's reset that one more time. Also for anyone, if you're a fan of sequence parameters, I've got a little goodie in here. It's a script sequence is what I called it, but this basically you can link it to any sequence and it'll give you a really nice table. A fun little thing there. What, I got an error somewhere? I don't know. Let me zoom in if my Wi-Fi will let me. Oh. All right, so let's try to call it with a slightly smarter model. Overkill, Claude Sonnet 4, and we're reset. See if I can get all of my live demos to work. Now that I said that, I'm pretty much set. So you'll notice that Claude Sonnet did do the stuff. It even included the break. Oh, that's nice. Cool. So based on all of this, it said all the stuff, and then I guess I'll delete this. Don't need the backup anymore. And then all this base is basically doing is taking the sequence and turning it into that table like I was saying. Oh. This is going to get annoying. Wi-Fi. All right, so we got the stuff in the table eventually. And now we're going to give another agent. Come on. This system prompt. Basically, it's saying, please set the speaker according to the current time and this list. And then I'm giving the list that the other agent created. And then for fake data, I just created this thing that scans through time. But let's test it. We'll pause it because it's going through time way too much. So I'm saying the user is basically saying, it's 9:01, please set the schedule. And then this goes into this agent. Let me make sure, who are we on? Probably going to be using this setup to like show the names of people later too. We are currently in NOAA, which would be 820 to 840. But if we, let's put a null here, full screen this, and then call the agent. Hopefully it brings us out of that. Set event, and now we're 901, we're in Torin. So this agent, another example of the tool parameter, this word glitch component is just a list of the speakers. Also, if you haven't used this before, this is super handy. tdu.table menu, so you can just specify a table and specify the name and column. So this menu is actually dynamically just based on whatever table is plugged into this component. So this is not necessarily foolproof, of course, but I could load in a different event schedule, give it a slightly different prompt, and then this would go through the chain, and I would create this like promptable schedule showing these names. Feel free to dive into that. But yeah, that covers the tool parameter. That's kind of like my level 1, I would say. It's very leaning into the TouchDesigner centric stuff. Hopefully, people that are using TouchDesigner for any amount of time, like a year and a half plus, have been using custom parameters at some point. If you haven't, and you're around that time period or plus into your TouchDesigner journey, do it. I've been meaning to do like a tutorial on custom parameters and stuff. I think I should. So diving into another very TouchDesigner specific one, which is using DATs, which is tables and tools. So we got the tool DAT. So I'm basically going text to color scheme here. I don't know why this is the one that I decided to keep in here, but purple to rainbow, 9 colors. And then the user message going into this agent, oh, disconnected that. Let's keep that connected, is using a little bit of f-string action to grab, replace, update the color scheme rows to the table to create a purple to rainbow, 9 colors, color scheme, value range 0 to 1, not 1 to 255. I found in my testing they wanted to go to the normal like JPEG RGB value range, but in Touch, we keep it between 0 and 1. And then the tool DAT is basically a table or text editor. The model is able to do all of these things. These are like, oh, here's another powerful thing that I need to be pulling out throughout the whole presentation to explain the tools. I'm just going to say that word like 50 times. But the tool debugger itself is a different LOP, but it's not necessarily actually a tool. All it basically gives you is the ability to look at the tools that the tools expose. So you'll see we have 10 tools. All of them are pertaining to tables. If this tool DAT was in text mode, there would be some different options. So now let me hook up my extreme neon sun, just normal sunset. Let's just do a normal sunset. And plug that in, bring us over. And then also, if you want to check out, haven't really gone chop to dat to top to stuff, check out that. But call this agent, and it's going to create a sunset. And it chose to do 4 colors. They're beautiful. And that was a open source GPT model, GPT-OS 120B. Also through Grok. I like Grok because it's fast, and the tool calling is just like really reliable. I don't know why Grok has better tool calling than most like actual providers that own the LLMs that they're providing, but I don't really use OpenAI stuff too much. Also, warning, GPT-5 pretty much doesn't work with LOPs, I don't know. But it'll just like go forever and not respond with the tool. I think it's definitely my fault. It's a bug on my thing, but I think it's with like the thinking tokens that they're outputting. I'll figure it out eventually. It also could be something that like a version of Light LLM comes out and they just kind of fix their SDK connection and then it starts working. But right now, don't use GPT-5. GPT-4o and O4 Mini are really good and fairly cheap. And, oh, yeah, there's some sort of issue with this, invalid request, but it did read the content and replace all the tables. Yeah, another really important thing is this tool turn budget. So the agent isn't always going to call one tool and come back to you. It would if you had a tool turn budget of 1, but you can set this as high as you want, even higher to 10 if you would like. But the reason that it had an error is because it tried to call another tool, and I capped it on that budget. Because all it needs for this task is just to read and replace all the tables. It doesn't really need to read it, because I'm also creating, there's this thing called a context grabber, which is a LOP that just gives you the ability to go through and add anything to the agent. Honestly, maybe don't try PDF, but all the other stuff will work great. If the agent's multimodal, you can send it as many tops as you want. You can give them labels, and it'll understand like the difference. You could give them like frame numbers and almost give it a sequence of things, and it might have some temporal understanding. The amount of stuff that you dump at the model, you want probably a better model. Most of the LOPS development has existed between the cheapest and the middle of the pack. Only recently I've started using like Claude Code in some of the more powerful models, but I've kept my budget for developing this pretty low. I've spent like under $100 of API credits throughout all the testing of this in the past year. That would change if I had used Claude 4 for everything, like a lot of people do. I would probably have spent $5,000 or something. I don't know what, I could do the math there. But if you stick to Gemini 2.0 Flash on most of the testing, it is way cheaper. So yeah, that covers the tool DAT. That's the only setup I have with that. But this is, again, kind of like creating a structure and letting the LLM fill that out, but allowing the room for the right amount of like creative decision making on the model's part. So now we're going to get a little bit farther outside of just TouchDesigner land and go into more standard LLM stuff. Structured output, or JSON mode, or structured output is like a continuation of JSON mode, but this is like pretty much the stuff. Every like ChatGPT UI likely is every output from the AI is in structured output, and that's how they're actually displaying it in the UI to the user. I don't know if that's actually true, but definitely like some of the deep research modes and stuff are like these extremely structured, deep research might be agentic depending on your platform, but extremely structured output where, let me go into one of these for an example. You basically give it a JSON schema, and then it forces the model through a pydantic schema representation of this to output that schema. And I don't actually know if I finished this result. Yep, I said give me a to-do for, getting ready for work. So now, based on this, the model was given this schema. This is in the I/O page. It's a very new parameter. This is not in the version that's out, but it's awesome. I'm giving it this schema as a DAT, and then let's see what model we're using. Oh, that won't work. This is a, I should probably just filter this out of the list. Don't actually know what this model does. Let's go GPT OSS 120B. Again, open source by OpenAI, but running on Croc, and then call the agent. Oh, yeah. There we go. Cool. Completed false high prepare for, yeah, sure. My next schema example is better. Let's look at that one. So this is a song analyzer. The schema for this is you basically give it segments, and I just generated this 10 minutes before the workshop with Gemini and the web interface, just so you know, full transparency. But what did I ask it for? I was like, I'm looking to explore something, something, and then I was like, wait, what? Did it cut off my, that's weird. I gave it the schema for the to-do app, and I was like, the LLM can understand audio track, give me a simple schema for this. I could have done this in LOPs. I don't know why I didn't, but yeah, even the developer's not using them for everything. But Gemini 2.5 models can understand audio. So this is what the model thinks of our good old friend, the default TouchDesigner audio track. So in the context here, in the context page only for Gemini 2.5, Flash and Pro, but you can enable this audio. And it can give me as many segments as it wants. This is a 1 minute and 10-second long audio track. I'm using Gemini 2.5 Pro because I'm just giving it, just hoping for the best result. And then I'm asking for description of the music, lyrics if there are any, start and end times for all the moments throughout the song. And again, I'm using the schema that is defined here, and then we get back from the agent, come on, internet. I'm gonna stop zooming or else it'll zoom too far. Oof. Oh, it is nice. It pointed out that synth pluck that we all know so well. This isn't really the best song to analyze though, because it is no lyrics. This is a song that I'm not probably gonna share this song with you, but I just made it in Suno. I was like, I'm doing a workshop on LOPs. Don't write anything over hypey, but write something about like how they're confusing and no one knows how to use them. And then if we can get to it with Parsec, I can call the agent. This will take a little bit longer, especially Gemini 2.5 is doing that thinking before it responds to you. But one idea for this, to take it a little bit further, is to just create a full music video generator. This comes with descriptions, visual descriptions of what might happen in the song, so you could already plug those into Stream Diffusion or something like that, or plug that into like a timer-based system that's going through this JSON. And we'll see, we got some lyrics, web scraping dreams, browser sing, parameter shift. Gotta love those AI lyrics. And also in this, just two little fun script dats. This is a JSON extractor. It'll basically break all your JSON into a table. Not guaranteed to work with everything. Maybe check out these parameters. And then if you do want to try the schema and you want to test the model, the first input would be your original JSON and the second input would be the output from the model. And this will let you know if that is like actually validated. So maybe handy, or maybe you could just check out the callback code of that if you want to just look at some more Python. I tried to just shove as many little Python nuggets in here as possible. So for a while, function calling, tool calls, JSON mode, that was like the sauce of the sauce. Yeah. But recently, MCP stuff has really taken the world by storm. What does that mean? Oh, you need the password. Just a little moment. So, how many people, does anyone know what MCP is? Raise your hand. A good decent. So it's like the people, I think they've called it the USB port of LLMs, but basically, or universal context that connects LLMs and tools. So it's doing a lot of the stuff. It's actually simplifying a lot of the stuff that I've done here with these like LOPs native tools. But MCP basically allows you, especially if you're writing a server and defining the tools, it's really simple. And it gives you a little, very standard way to describe tools to the model. You need like a name for the tool, you need a description and the parameters, and then the model is able to look at the description, also see the parameters. But again, this is just like basically a JSON schema. So in LOPs, for MCP, there's the MCP client, which is what is listening and calling the tools and communicating with the LLM. There's also the MCP server, and this is like kind of the tool. And this is talking to a client and getting outputs. It's basically saying like, hey, this is what I do, screams it at the client talks to the LLM, and then the client verifies the tool calls and then screams out to the server like, they want to change to the next slide, go. And then the server will do the actual logic. So it's a clean separation of these things. Yeah, that's all I'm really going to touch on for MCP, because it seems like half the audience is familiar with it. But the MCP server stuff in Touch is going to be when TD is running the tools, and then external clients like Cursor, VS Code, or some of these things you could configure to control things in Touch. or you can just use it with the LOPs agents. Also, I have Gemini Live supported and Claude Code, like I said. So both of those can also be used in any of these LOPs tools that I'm mentioning. I'll show Gemini Live in a sec. So the MCP server, in LOPs, I give you 3 built-in servers. None of them are like a full TouchDesigner is just going to go in and build networks for you. I do have one I'm kind of working on, but that's a pretty, it's a pretty like, I can't think of the word, but it's a big goal. It'll be very useful when the text-based file format comes out because you can extract a little part of your network and just have it edit one parameter like that. And that's probably going to totally change the way I approach, or that might be the way I approach editing your network. I haven't really even gone into that because I know that's coming. But you'll see, I'm going to have 4 available, but you're going to see the top 3. So there's the basic server, which just gives you, and kind of look at the code here. This is going to get, one tool is get network info, and then another tool, if it'll let me scroll, is get component context. And a better way to look at this is to use the tool debugger. One slightly tricky thing is the MCP servers do need to be active. So these are something that you need to launch, close, restart, etc. I should definitely have a toggle on here now that I think about it to auto load on start. But if I start the server, it's going to start the basic server. It's saying it's exposed these 2 tools. It gives you a little bit of the schema. But then if I call get tools with the tool debugger, we'll see I have these two tools. Another one you can, schema might be a little bit cleaner. Yeah, this shows like just the tool, just the description. But this server is honestly useless. It's just kind of a smaller bit of Python for if you wanted to like read and look at how I'm defining some of these servers. This is probably the entry point. If you're familiar with Python, this is the easiest way to create a tool for TouchDesigner in LOPs, I would say, unless you're using like parameters and want to make it around a network. A little bit of info on how you might do that is I'm using FastMCP, which is a MCP library. I think it's like fully integrated into the MCP library. I am using slightly older versions of MCP because of Windows Win32 errors, but FastMCP allows you to do, like I showed, and fully define the full MCP tool with just this decorator. And if you know what a decorator is, great. Yeah, check that out. That's only like 40 lines of code. The other 2 that I'm going to show here are way more Python code, but it also has full undo redo support in Touch, which is like this crazy thing that you can do. It's complicated, but this example is not very filled out. Doesn't look like I got to this. I'll go back to that. This one's really fun. So this is going to cover a bunch of stuff. So on the first release, I had the agent that, like I was basically have showed so far, is like it calls 1 tool, or it calls up to 10 tools. I actually didn't have that available. I think there was a tool turn budget on the first release. I don't know. But I've got some other stuff. Open the operators. The agent orchestrator and the agent session are basically much more quote-unquote agentic ways to operate with the agents. I guess the agent session isn't really agentic. It's actually just exactly like you would expect, a ChatGPT-like interface. More akin to like Cursor, I would say, because you have multiple tool calls and you can, this is your vibe coding interface for LOPs. So the MCP server that I'm talking about is this one, which is built into LOPs. This comes with the stuff. It's this drop down the GLSL tool. When you select that, you're going to want to hit load server, and that's going to dump the server code into this MCP server. Fun fact, it goes here in the operator called server code. Come on, internet. This is brutal. But the GLSL shader basically, yeah, enables a tight loop with the GLSL code, so you can give the agent, it always returns this like, let's zoom in. No, this is the bad way to do it. Tool debugger. The delay is almost kind of nice. It forces me to go slow so that maybe it's a little bit more follow alongable. But if we tool debug this in schema mode, you'll see the descriptions for these are massive. I'm giving the AI a whole tutorial in GLSL every single time that it looks at the tool descriptions. And I'm also, every single time it does anything, I'm returning the compile info for the GLSL. Has anyone coded GLSL in Touch? Roughly? It's kind of like, I honestly haven't done too much of it. I've done more of it through this like MCP server than I ever have. It's fairly intimidating, in my opinion. I do know how to do some pretty basic stuff, like shift around a thing on a UV and like move some stuff up. If you want to learn, Lake Heckman has like the best courses on YouTube for that type of stuff. There might be better ones, but that's my recommendation. But here, basically, I'm giving the agent, this delay is crazy. Another LOP to introduce before I explain the whole setup is the agent session. This is like I was saying, like that chat interface, but this agent session takes an agent, you actually give it a system message, so that injects it into the agent, and then you have these ideas of sessions. So if you want to go through and see all my chat history for when I was building this project, in each one of these, they like auto-name themselves too. There is the full chat history of me trying to get some like fun examples for this. But pretty much all of these examples is doing one thing. I'm starting it with agent session saying, create a glowing rotating 3D cube wireframe. And then I was going through a variety of models, doing a little almost like quote unquote benchmarking. And here's what we got. So we got GPT OS 20B is the first one. It's not a wireframe. I mean, this is probably 3 or 4 back and forth. So I was like, come on, buddy. And it made like these extremely long extruded sides. I don't know. Then we've got one that is doing some sort of like weird camera POV inversion, but this is Kimi K2 again. Extremely eager model, a little more expensive than most of the ones that I play with, but most people call it a cheap model. So, but this with the same prompt in 3 and 4 back and forths. My last one was like, just give me a bunch of controls to play with. Another thing about the GLSL server is it will always read the compile info. Those are the tools, so you can read, set, and set the uniforms. But the uniforms are programmatically extracted from the GLSL code and put onto the GLSL operator and defined in the sequence. Previously, I had like the agent had a tool that was like, load GLSL uniforms onto the operator. So it had to do two calls, one with the complete GLSL code and one with the same uniform names, and you had to trust it to like actually remember how to do it. It's terrible. I don't think it's still in here. I think I removed it, but I used to have in one of the earlier versions this GLSL creator LOP that did what this server did, but in just a bad version. Yeah, removing complexity for the model greatly benefited the actual like reliability of this tool. Because I can pretty much get this dumbest LLM, as long as it can call tools, it will create a working GLSL shader in Touch. So if you've ever done GLSL shader with even ChatGPT, I feel like that'll sound pretty impressive. Also realizing I'm on battery. We'll get there in a minute. So yeah, going through a couple of these. Another thing to show, and you can explain this or play with this, is I have 2 system prompts. This is kind of going over how system prompts are important. If you know about system prompts, they don't really let you play with those in the ChatGPT interface, but this is what the system prompts in the interface are like multiple pages long. They have all these caveats of like, if the user tries to like extract bank information out of your training data, you should probably say no. The base system prompt that comes with any agent in LOPs is this. I do say LOPs, So if you say hey to the agent, it's like, what's up? Let's jam on TouchDesigner. That's not it just being like crazy and being able to like run in your project. It's just me giving it a little bit of a hint and a little bit of branding. I didn't give it like a name. I didn't give it anything. But when you place the agent, the system message is in a DAT, and you can, on the agent itself, you can just drag a different DAT on there, and it'll change the system message. But I would say that's like one of the first things, that if the agent's not doing well, and if it's being like Gemini 2.5 did with this frickin' cube, it kept refusing with the default prompt. Maybe I could try to simulate that. Let's go Gemini 2.5 Pro with the default thing. Let's go new session. Send a message. Is this on? MCP server? Yep, it's on. And then Gemini 2.5 Pro, hopefully, unless it's going to like actually perform well, which would be cool, but it's probably going to say something like, I'm not going to make a 3D scene. I have the ability to make shaders. But it is taking a while, so it's kind of seems like it's kind of cooking. Oh, it just gave me shader code. Yeah, that's linked up. Cool. Now, if I plug in this one, which tells it you are a masterful shader creator, and then a little bit of the rest of the thing, and then I'm basically just saying, please just actually do the shader stuff. You can read that if you want. Create a new session, and let me call Gemini 2.5. Same model, again. In an ideal world, it'll actually write a shader code instead of, oh no, yeah, tool exposed, get compile information. So this tool is active. I picked the slowest, probably one of the slowest models on the block to do this. All right, it just failed. Cool. Bad example, live demo failed. But if we go to that Kimi K2 model, and agent session, new session, send message. This one is going to place a GLSL shader and make a cube for us right away. Thank you, Kimi. And we'll see we have a bunch of vectors, uniforms, for us to play with as well. And you can look at way too many cubes. I basically had all the models create cubes. This is the first time I've actually run the GLM 4.5 with LOPs this afternoon. I was like, sick, it works. Also, here's just if you want to look at some pretty shader tests, you can go in here and then manually look at these. I think I should share this in my talk, but if you want to just like get some fun GLSL to check out, here's 26 shaders. Cool. But touch is kind of weird. If you don't really want to look at those, just never enable that. I don't know if it unloads GLSL code off of memory from your computer. It's always been a mystery for me. But yeah, any questions so far? Probably, but yeah.
What's your process for getting to know the different LLMs?
Testing.
Testing them all.
Watching YouTube videos. If a new model comes out and someone's like, oh, I did this, here's this, like, I tried to vibe code it and it made me a website, and the websites always look the same, but yeah, I would say I'm generally very much going towards that small to medium tool calling model that eventually my goal is for all this to run on your computer because it's just gonna be faster and yeah. I mean, in this, I was actually pretty surprised that even across different models, maybe just like for some reason a rotating colorful cube is always blue, but Gemini 2.0 Flash was the only one that gave me something like unique. The unique factor was the fact that it was 2D. I would say the answer is no. They're not that reliable or consistent. They're going to give you different results, but you also have control over that with the temperature. My default is 0.7, which is honestly probably pretty high. You're going to get a lot more deterministic reliability if it works with a model, if you turn it down to like 0 or 0.1. I'm more, maybe even my temperature that high is like me stress testing it. Lowering that would probably be a good first step if something is like not working, just to see if it's just like being a little too random. Anybody else? And then I'll move on to the MCP client stuff. You can also explain how the agent is able to call these MCP. It's not actually calling the MCP server, fun fact. It's actually reading the cached, well, it technically is, but the way I'm doing it, it's reading the cached model, the cached tool calls that are defined by the MCP server and then like reverse engineering those definitions and calling that code. But if you connect to it in cursor, it will actually call the MCP tool. But for the end user, it's the same thing. MCP client is even more abstracted. But so the MCP client, like I was saying, is like the thing that talks to the LLM and calls the tools. And the reason that I even brought this in touch, like MCP server, the way I have it is almost an MCP client, but this is literally a client that can talk to other tools. So the examples that I tried to open this, I think I tried to double click it. There's not too much of an example here, but I did jam via Gemini Live with Blender earlier today and was able to create this wonderful house. It's impressive, I know. I spent very few minutes on this example, but via a JSON, more this JSON thing, but via a JSON schema, you can set the MCP client operator to connect to external tools. So right now it's connected to Blender and Ableton. I don't have Ableton open. I haven't really tested that yet. Or I tested it like on the day that the guy released the MCP server, so I should probably test it again. This is one that's harder to demo over Parsec because I'm using Gemini Live. This, you want to plug in a live mic input, and then you're going to define the same tools, very similar as the agent, but now this is actually going to respond via a voice very quickly, instantly, until you, and always, it's very good at being like, okay, even if you tell it to like not say anything, until you hit stop. I do have a allow model to stop conversation, a tool that I like put on top of their Gemini Live API because they don't have that included for some reason. Maybe they do. I made this a while ago. And I think it's still in an experimental API status as far as like the actual SDK. It can also output text, and you can give it an image. So you can like, let me see. No delay on my MacBook. I don't know if this is installed. Sick. All right. It installed. Sick. All right, cool. So also when you place some operators, they're going to do this thing where it checks for the Python library and then gives you a little pop-up to install right away. It hopefully shouldn't happen when you place the operator. I've honestly tried to remove all that logic. It used to happen on all the operators, but that resulted in you opening a project when you don't detect your virtual environment, then you have to click yes to like 50 pop-ups. It was the worst. But let's see. In theory, I'm playing audio. All right. Oh. Enter API key. Oof. How do I find that? Just no one look at my screen. Just kidding. Where is it? Git sync. Another lesson to take from this workshop is just, use my folder structure. The folder structure is no folder structure. I would be able to find this if I wasn't like presenting probably a little bit quicker. Where do I have this saved? Oh, it's not in this folder. It's in this folder. Classic. I guess this works. Oh, decimator, sick. Let me grab my API key real quick, folks. Word wrap. Oh, I got a lot of API keys in here. Yeah, it's good. I do have a Gemini. Close that. Go over here. Yes. Sick. All right, so you're going to want to hit this playback. I was not planning on demoing this, so it'll bite me in the butt, I'm sure. Hello, hello.
Hello there. How can I help you today?
I don't know, you can't, you don't have any tools.
I actually do have tools to help you.
No, you don't.
That's good to know. I assure you.
It's hearing itself right now because it's using the MacBook speaker and the Mac thing. And Google doesn't have voice activation detection that auto freaking covers this also in their API. But,
I understand your concern.
yeah, I'm mad right now.
I apologize if I caused any frustration.
That's okay. Why are you talking to yourself?
I'm not talking to myself. I apologize if it's happening.
Seems like you are.
I assure you, I'm here to assist.
Okay. That's fun. I would tell it to stop the conversation. It probably would have run that tool. Yeah. And I don't have a Blender set up right here, but I'll post maybe like 2 unlisted YouTube videos of me yelling at Gemini to try to get it to do Blender stuff. It's fairly entertaining. I probably should just post those. Back to it. Oh. Ooh. A little glimpse at the LOP Studio desktop app that's unreleased. Front end. I'm basically figuring out how to use your LOPs TouchDesigner stuff as a back end, and then you can define these like creative AI things and trigger them through that. There's going to be a mobile access. Yeah. I want to talk to Claude Code on my phone through LOPs, through TouchDesigner, when I'm on the subway. That's my goal. But yeah, you can check out this. If you open this, you'll be able to read the conversation when I'm yelling at Gemini to do this, but the YouTube videos will be more entertaining. But that's the MCP client. It's pretty complicated, but if you're into MCP, check it out. I've got both sides figured out. Oh, no, I'm not trying to click on that. Agent as a tool. This is another one where I don't have the best example. So this is the agent orchestrator, fairly new lob. But you basically have one agent, which is I'm calling it the validation agent. You're going to want to put it there. And then this agent is like the top of the chain, and then it can have as many sub-agents as it wants. So let's give it 3. And what are you, let me delete these because it's mad about something. Let's go, we're gonna get 3 agents, and hopefully I have a model that's decent. Okay, we'll just go GPT OSS all day. Agent 1, oh, yeah, just make it in order. Agent 1, Agent 2, and Agent 4. And then we need a task DAT, which is going to be a DAT, and it's going to be just like, hey, check in on the other agents and make sure they can run the tools they have. And now let's give everyone a tool. You're the tool DAT guy. You're the search. This is like Google search. Oh, I have to assign them. Darn it. This is why you're going to get the after project file too. And then what else? Gemini image gen. This guy can make images with Nano Banana. Tools. So now I think I have everything set up. I just need to drag this DAT as the task DAT. We have 10 max rounds. Every agent only has 1 tool turn budget, so I'm going to set that because I just remembered about that. Wi-Fi, come on, come on. Just going to wait for a moment. might be able to copy these nodes and I doubt copying operators would work over parsec, but I should just be doing this on my Mac. Oh, we're almost back. All right, I think we're back. TestStat is placed. Every agent has one tool turn budget, and it's still delayed. Wow. Whenever it comes back, I'm just going to set that tool turn budget to like 2 or 4 or 5 or something. What's the trick for this? You just change this and it like joggles it or something? I used to have a solve for this. Cool. Agent orchestrator. All of this to just show this. We'll get there. Anybody have any questions in this wonderful Wi-Fi moment? Any ideas or things that you could see using LOPs for? Or maybe like questions about like, hey, would this be possible or something? We're also probably getting, I do have one more thing to show as like the 6th level, and then hopefully, oh, pizza just arrived also. But for the next hour or so, it'll be more loose. I can like walk around, or maybe I'll stay up here, I don't know. But if you like have any challenges for me to like try to build out a LOPS real quick, or you have any questions. But yeah, I do have one more thing to talk about, but this is getting pretty tough, so let me just do this. I am waiting a moment. At this point, I could have rebuilt it on my Mac. Okay. I'm going to rebuild this if anyone wants to think of any questions, or actually, grab a piece of pizza also. Feel free. Just give me a moment. Okay, actually, we might be good. Wow. Wow. Not on the right operator. Hey, chicken. With all the agents should be. Okay, it's going to work. One agent runs, and it's talking. Oh, it's not going to work if my project's paused. Fuck. Oh, wait, no, that was probably just Wi-Fi. Now I'm pausing my project. This is terrible. This is terrible. I know what to do. Check. We're just dumping this on everybody. Nice. No, 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 don't look. That was the message where I was like, I don't know if anyone cool is going to be at the workshop, Torin. Sick. Darn it, that's not installed. Is Foul AI installed? Dependencies required. Come on. Install. That won't take that long. Another thing is most of the operators have this like install dependencies and check dependencies pair pulses now. So when you load it into your project, you just have to install once at the very beginning, and it should work across all projects. But now I have the fall AI in the API section. Sure, FluxDev, that's fine. And now we're going to give this to the agent as a tool. And let's do the same thing. Just, give these guys tool turn budget of 4. Make sure that, did that actually change? Okay, it changes if they have the same parameters. We'll give this one just a couple too, maybe 5, sure. Start. No, GPT, what are you doing? Give it a different, it's because I'm using that model. I wouldn't, don't pull out this tox. It's too messy. But if I give that a decent model, and then these are already set because I set that fine. Now, oh geez, Kimi K2 error. That's crazy. Let's get into the section of really impressive demos. Gemini? What? Oh, all right. I mean, some of you might have even noticed what I'm doing. I'm just calling the agent. I'm not calling the agent orchestrator. I was just like, why is this not doing anything? Let me call the agent orchestrator, which is going to call the agent to call the other agents and check in all 3 of them. I didn't check on agent 2, but I guess search isn't that important. And then these guys also just died. Good demo. Cool, so that wasn't the best, most impressive agent orchestrator. New LOP, that was in V2. Might even have some improvements that aren't packaged here. But now that we have this, let me make sure that this will actually use a decent model. Now let's go Llama. And then these want to have a budget, and then this also. Cool. I'm going to very, very quickly cover these, and then we can eat pizza and just hang in. So this is using a Python extension as a tool. I have 2 different layers of complexity here. Calculator, the calculator is more complex. This is actually how I build LOPs, is what I do is I have this thing called a base. It's got nothing in it except for some helper classes and an extension par exec. That means any parameter that matches a function name will just be callable, and also my logger. And with this, I can create a fairly simple Python extension that has in it a function called setUpParameters. And then with a single line of Python, I guess it's using multiple lines because GPT or Claude made this look nice. But I can define the parameters that are on the operator and define all the logic for the entirety of the operator. And as long as there is a function in this called getTool that returns a JSON schema, and the schema has to have a callback info item that has the handler on it, which is the name of the other function on this operator that you will call as the callback. But with those 2 things, you can write your own tools for LOPs. And then even more, like this one's got, what did I say? What is that number divided by 564 in all caps? This one shows you the last input and the output, and truly the operations this can do is add, subtract, multiply, and divide. It's not a very advanced calculator, but the simple one is the same functionality, but much simpler. It doesn't have any parameters. It's not using my LOPs thing, but it defines a very similar get tool, and handle calculation is the callback for it. And then also, this is just something I threw in there, but I haven't really used this much, but this is my procrastination technique, is when I'm trying to like record a tutorial, I'll build tools to make tutorials easier to record. And then I end up never using them in the recording process, but here's a fun little, you give it a JSON, you can get an AI to write this out for you, and then it's like a little cue card that you could like have. I have a little tiny monitor above my recording monitor. I've got like 2 monitors, then one tiny one. And this cue card is also, it's called OBS because at one point I was trying to add OBS control functionality into it. Don't look at that. But this cue card is also a tool that the agent can call. So the agent would be able to see the cues, and then I could, go to the last slide. Hopefully this works. Haven't tested. Tool. What model? GPT OSS. It's been failing us recently, but we'll see. We are on slide 1 of 8. Oh, it just got the, what did it? Okay. So it got the full tutorial content with one tool call around. But if we give it more, also this has no context of this previous add message, so I'm pretty much one-shotting it every time. I call this boy, it's going to read the content and then set us to 8 out of 8. And I just said the last one. So it had to know what the whole thing was for that. But yeah, that's all the stuff. That's all the setups that I've got in this project file. You have it, and you have the ability to ask me any questions. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap up my like portion of it, and then we've got pizza. That's the amount of pizzas for the entirety of the group that is coming at 7. So don't think that you have to force down 6 slices. But if you want, they're not here yet. So go at it. But yeah, thank you guys. Oh, that's the other mic. But yeah, we'll do questions, hang, chill. You can walk up and ask me some questions, but grab pizza. I think I've said that like 4 times.
Nice to see you. Yeah. Well, I saw you at Artisan and Machine. That was the last time I saw you physically. But yeah. How was your summer?
Good. Yeah.
Congrats on this.
This was a lot of the summer, but
Yeah.
I mean, I've already probably rewritten